Our second scripture reading comes from the Gospel of St. Matthew in the second chapter. Listen very carefully to the Word of God. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then King Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Egypt, they returned to their country by a river. When they had gone home, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "and take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So Joseph took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. So was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then it was said through the prophet, "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." May God have a blessing to our lives through His holy word. Almighty God, as we look into your word this morning, let me ask that you this Advent season, and even though we got cut short because I went too long on the last series, last week we looked at what we really wanted for Christmas was peace. Today we're going to talk about what we really want for Christmas is love. If you think about it, that's probably about the greatest gift that we can receive. The interesting thing about this story from Matthew about the Magi is we don't hear about them anywhere else in the Bible. We're pretty sure that Magi were Persian. They weren't kings like the hymn says. That hymn writer had to do a little extra time in purgatory, I think. They were wise men. They were astronomers, not astrologers, astronomers. They studied the skies. They were probably seen as a bit eccentric because they probably slept all day and stayed up all night looking into the stars because they believed it was there they would find answers. And one night as they were looking into the stars, they saw something amazing. We're not sure if it was a supernova or if God created a special star just for this event, but whatever it was, they saw something that shocked them. And they began looking through all of their literature to see what it might mean, and they discovered that it meant that there was a king born of the Jews. This was the sign. And so they packed up for the long trip from Persia to Israel. They got all of the supplies that they needed. We think that 100 camels in their train to carry all of the supplies you would need to go across the great Sahara Desert, the great Arabian Desert, to get from Persia to Israel. Hundreds of camels service to take them on. And I know you're saying to yourself, that's Reverend Posehn, I know you're lying to us. How are you going to fit 100 camels on your coffee table at Christmas time? Well, it was quite a journey. And they came to Jerusalem to discover the original Scrooge. The original Scrooge was when the Romans would take over a country, they would always get rid of all of the leadership, whether it was a king or a governor or whatever, and they would replace the leadership with someone that they chose, and they usually chose an enemy of the people. It says in the Bible that Herod was an Edomite. The Edomite people located to assassinate him so that they could take a favorite kind of a guy. Well, we can learn a lot about Herod from this passage as the original Scrooge. There are three things this passage shows us about King Herod. First, he was greedy. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. Because he was greedy for the power that he had. He didn't even want to share it with his own two sons. Why would he want to share it with some brat kid from Bethlehem? You see, because he was never satisfied. And there he was, outwarded by the Magi. He was furious. He didn't get what he wanted from these foreigners and was angry. He was greedy, he was never satisfied, and finally, he was corrupt. And he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and younger. If he couldn't get his power from the Magi, he was going to make sure that nobody got it. You know, at this time, Bethlehem wasn't a very large city. There was only maybe 500 or 1,000 people that lived in this area. But can you imagine every baby boy in the entire community murdered? Can you imagine what that would do to the heart of a city? Herod was so cruel and so corrupt and so mean that he didn't even care. The problem for some of us during this Advent season is that we get a little humbuggy ourselves. Now, we may not be as far off the edge as Herod was, but some of us are a little Scroogey just the same. And I want to give you some steps for changing your humbug into love. I think we can use Herod's example and flip it on its end to see how we might be a bit more loving this Advent season. First of all, don't be greedy. Instead, be generous. Look at what Paul says to Timothy in relation to his church. He says, instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. You know, most of us should have learned this when we were about 9 or 10 or 11 years old. That it's better to be generous than it is to be greedy. The problem is that many of us haven't completely gotten the picture yet. This one, though, is relatively easy, I think. Because I don't know about you, but I enjoy giving things at Christmas much more than I do getting things at Christmas. The joy that I always saw in the eyes of my little boys when they opened their presents was worth all of the struggle. And I have to admit to you that being a pastor, Christmas is not the greatest holiday. The church I was working at when my boys were little was Folsom Presbyterian Church. We had about 600 members, and we would bring in about 1,000 people on Christmas Eve. We had a Christmas Eve service at 5, at 6:30, at 9, and at 11. And I had to be there for all of them. And I had to preach in the last 2. And I would get home about 12:30 or 1, and then it was Santa time. And I'd be helping out Santa, putting together bicycles or whatever it was that Santa was bringing until about 4 o'clock in the morning, just about the time my son Forrest would wake up. I was not unhumbuggy on Christmas morning as a pastor, especially when Christmas morning was a Sunday and I had to go back to work again. Except for when I had the opportunity to see the joy in the eyes of my boys. It's pretty easy to turn our greed into generosity when we think about it. If you want to swap your humbug for love, don't be greedy. Instead, be generous. Secondly, don't be dissatisfied. Instead, be content. Let your way be free from the love of money, being content with what you have. For he himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. I'm kind of a unique individual. I am friends with 2 billionaires. No, they haven't given me any money. But both of them are, you might think a billionaire would be kind of a cranky person because of all the stuff they have to deal with. Both of them are incredibly joyous. One of them, Bob Pepper, is the happiest guy you'll ever meet. Because Bob gives away about $35 to $40 million a year. He has the opportunity to see lives change because of his success in life. He loves to give away money. Never given any to me, but he loves to give away money. He is about the most content person I know. I have another friend who's worth about $30 million. He's perhaps the most uncontent or discontented person I know because he's always worried about making sure he keeps his $30 million. I have an exercise for you when you go home today. When you get home, I want you to open your check register or your money software program, and I want you to look at the checks that you have written over the last couple of months. You will discover where your heart is, because where your treasure lies, there also will be your heart. Don't be dishonest, be trustworthy. Look at what it says. Do not lay up treasures for yourself upon the earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroy and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Do a little self-evaluation. Discover where your heart is by looking at where your treasure goes. Might cause you to readjust your checkbook a little bit in the future. Because if your treasure is going to keep care of your stuff, that's where your heart will be. See, the problem with us Americans is we get to be a little bit materialistic at times. And the question becomes, do we own our stuff or does our stuff own us? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If you focus on being generous and content and trustworthy, you will reduce your level of humbug. Well, this Christmas season, I want us to focus on some important things if we want to get what we really want for Christmas. If you want to get what you really want for Christmas, relax a little more. Reflect a little more. Rolled the page up too high. Dang iPads. Reflect a little more. The first Sunday in Advent, we talked about hope. Have hope in this Advent season. You know, it's too easy in our reflections on Christmases past to focus on the negatives. Because we all have tragedies around Christmas in our past. Do you know that every single one of my grandparents and great-grandparents, except for one, died within 3 weeks of Christmas either side? This is a difficult time of year for folks because there's all these emotions and there's all of these things to do and the weather gets nasty and folks get ill this time of year. And we lose loved ones. And if we spend all of our time focusing on the losses of Christmas, we will be humbuggy. Acknowledge those losses and then set them aside for a moment and remember the joys of Christmases past. Remember the look in the eyes of your children when they opened those presents. Remember singing Christmas carols in the snow in your neighborhood. Remember sharing a Christmas Yuletide beverage and cookies with neighbors and loved ones. Reflect and have hope. If you really want to get what you want for Christmas, relax a little bit more. Focus on being a peaceful person. Don't get so caught up in all the craziness that is Christmas, the shopping and the cookie making and all the decorating and stuff that has to be done that will turn you into a frantic being. Relax a little bit. Take some time to experience God's peace. And third, replace the humbug that you experience in life with love. Be a more loving person. Reach out and do something kind for those around you. Find that really cranky old guy around the corner and bring him a cookie. Be a loving person. And fourth, I'm not going to tell you. You'll discover that one on Christmas Eve. In order to get what you really want for Christmas, reflect a little bit, relax a little bit, and replace the humbug with love, and you will discover that this Christmas season might be the best ever.